the only person who truly cares about you being high value, the only person who truly deeply wants you to be high value is you. Hey, what's up? It's Todd, and today I want to talk to you about value. If you've been watching this channel for any period of time, you'll know that value and being a high value man is absolutely critical to being attractive with women. And even beyond that, I think most of us as men, even women aside, kind of want to be high value men. If you look at advertising, you look at, the striving and the goals of most people, I think we all kind of internally, given a choice between being a high value guy and a low value guy, what guy's going to say they want to be low value? But with that being the case, with us spending our lives striving to be high value, it's still the case that most guys end up being low value or at least mediocre to average value. It's very rare that a guy actually becomes a high value man. Now, why is that? Why is it that we're struggling and striving so much to be high value, and yet most guys end up low value? Well, there are three main reasons that I want to address to you. The first reason I'm going to give you is that the world does not want you to be high value. Yes, that sounds like a conspiracy theory, and it kind of is. But think of it this way, right? If everybody was a leader, who would be led? If everybody was a boss, who would be the employee? People in charge, people in power, what do they want? Do they want other people to try and be in charge and take power? Or do they want other people to be good employees, be good at keeping the wheel turning, keeping society functioning smoothly? Our political system is designed to have a lot of people being, average and happy and doing a productive job in society. The educational system is designed to, make you, average, sustainable, happy, and doing a decent job in society. It's not designed to turn you into a leader, and it's certainly not designed to turn you into a social or political threat to the people in charge. Even beyond that, though, your parents, your teachers may not have specifically wanted you to be high value because being high value is risky, right? Being high value in that environment where people aren't encouraged to be high value, and also just in the world in general, being high value is risky. It's a competitive endeavor. It's an endeavor where if you're striving, competing for certain things, you're taking away that safe kind of average, predictable life that you could have, right? Think of it this way. If you were to be, for example, an employee, you have a set of skills and you can market them to this employer, this employer, this employer. If you're good at your job, you probably will be able to find someone who will pay you to do it. Whereas if you go out and try and become an entrepreneur, for example, that's a big risk and you're on your own. If the business fails, you can't turn to anybody else. You can't be like, okay, well, support me, bail me out, unless you get big enough, maybe. But for the most part, you're really taking a bigger risk. So that the odds of massive success are a bit higher, but the odds of failure are much, much, much higher. And so teachers aren't encouraged to teach that. One, because that's not in the system, and two, because that's not the path they took themselves, and that's not the path they probably believe in. And even your parents, while they may want you to be high value, all things being equal, they don't want you to take risks, and they don't want you to be unsuccessful or unhappy in life. So even people who are well-intentioned and well-meaning towards you in the best possible way may not want you to be high value. So probably the only person who truly cares about you being high value, the only person who truly deeply wants you to be high value is you. So you should not, if you're on this path towards high value, expect a lot of support and guidance and caring along the way, because it's just not in the interest of other people. It's in your interest, but it's either neutral interest to them or maybe even negative interest to a lot of the world for you to be high value. In particular, it's actually quite a risk for women out there, not just you being high value, but the transition if you weren't high value at a low age, if you're kind of lower mediocre value and you're going to try and ascend to high value, that's something that women do not want men undertaking. Women have a philosophy or an idea. They're looking for certain things in a man. They're looking for this high value guy, and they don't want to be tricked. They don't want to be fooled. They want a nice, reliable sort of canvas where they can tell who's high value, they can tell who's low value, and they can make their decision. The idea of a guy increasing his value, the idea of a guy stepping up and learning skills to become high value is something that is a threat to that system, and it's actually sort of scary to women. And so for that reason, they will tend, say, for example, if you have female friends or girls around you and you start to step up and be high value, they will test you, they will challenge you, they will do things that will kind of drive your value down in some ways. due to things like peer pressure, social pressure, fear of embarrassment, those kind of things. They'll give you shit tests. They may criticize you for not being yourself anymore, all those kind of things. And also other men around you who are potentially competing for the women around you, they don't want to see you step up and be more high value, because now who's going to get the girl, you or them, right? Finally, if you're around a lot of people who have made the choice that being high value is not a possibility and are not striving actively to be high value themselves, if they see you step up and elevate your status, elevate yourself from lower value to higher value, what does that say about them? That means that their safe world where they can believe that that's not a possibility and be happy has been threatened. And they have to look introspectively at their lives now and be like, why haven't I done that? And that is a threat to them. So again, I want to reiterate to you, the only person who really cares about you being high value, the only person with a deep vested interest in it is you. I have a vested interest because it's my job to teach you that, and that's what, that's what I'm here for. That's what I do for a living. But even I, as a person, aside from kindness of my heart, I don't benefit directly from you becoming a high value person in that way either. So you are the only person. You are the only person in the world who cares or has a vested interest in that, and that's tough. That's a tough scenario to be in, and that is the first and maybe the biggest part of why most men don't become high value. Second reason why most men don't end up becoming high value is a lot more internal and more psychological. And that has to do with our motivations as an entity, our motivations as an organism, so to speak. So we are designed evolutionarily, we're designed to survive and pass our genes along, which actually would encourage us to be high value. But a big mechanism in that survival, apparatus is our emotions. And our emotions, essentially, were designed to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and minimize expenditure of energy. Those are our three major motivations. However, in the scope of those incentives, avoiding pain typically is a much bigger incentive than seeking pleasure. And that's because we evolved in a very unsafe world. If you look back at the evolutionary environment, if you were to take risks every day of your life, sooner or later, only one of those risks has to go badly and you're dead, right? Whereas if you were safe most of your life and you took an occasional risk when it was merited, then you would actually survive to be old enough to be in a situation to reproduce. And so surviving and getting by and getting through is objective number one in a very hostile, unsafe world. And then thriving and maximizing is something you would do sporadically. Again, taking too many risks all the time would lead to a bad outcome in that world. That's no longer necessarily the case nowadays in the 21st century when things are typically a lot safer, at least under normal conditions. But we still have that instinctive drive to primarily avoid pain first, seek pleasure later. We also have a huge urge to minimize output of energy. And being a high value guy is absolutely contrary to that drive, at least at first, right? The process of attaining high value, the process of stepping up is very difficult in terms of skills and energy we need to learn, emotional output, those kind of things. Now, if you actually do achieve high value, especially very, very high value, you may get to a point where you can expend very, very little energy, right? It's kind of like the idea of you get up a mountain, and then once you're at the top, it's all downhill and it's all very easy. But that trek up the mountain is very, very tough. And, if you undertake it and don't make it, then what? So that is definitely a factor. And again, because of that first thing I mentioned, which is that a lot of the world doesn't necessarily want you to be high value, or at the very least is not actively encouraging you to pursue being high value all along that path, which is already not easy because, the reward is very high and the competition is very difficult. All along that path, people will be trying to draw you down, beat you down, shame you, give you a hard time, different things like that. Now, I want to make a quick point because what I've just said could seem like it's oppressively difficult to become high value. And while it is difficult, it's certainly not impossible. And there's a difference between hard and difficult, which it's a distinction I want to make. It's a distinction I've talked about before. So hard is like lifting heavy rocks. It is physically taxing and difficult and time consuming. Difficult is more like making good entrepreneurial decisions. So lifting heavy rocks is hard, but it's not difficult. Pretty much anyone can do it, but it sucks, right? Difficult, like being an entrepreneur, coming up with a brand new idea, launching a successful business, there are some hard parts to it, but mainly the reason most people do it is just because, or don't do it, is because it's difficult, right? And the idea is that if you do enough difficult things right, you don't have to do a lot of hard things. So you do the difficult things, you do a thing that's either emotionally difficult or difficult on a skill level, and by doing that, you have a life that instead of being hard becomes easy. So there's a kind of a related quote. They say like, easy decisions, hard life, hard decisions, easy life. So that's kind of the idea I'm getting at here. So I'm not saying this is impossible. I'm just saying it is emotionally difficult, and it does require some stepping up, and it requires you doing some things that may not be in the easiest nature of evolution. But another point along those lines is every single time something is difficult, instead of getting depressed about it, you should get excited about it. Because every single time something is difficult, that's a moment when 90% of people will quit. So if you're in that top 10% or maybe even top 1% in some cases that doesn't quit, that actually represents an opportunity to you rather than a negative. So the fact that it is emotionally difficult, instead of being depressed by it, I want you to get actually excited about it. The third reason why most guys don't become high value comes down to skill, and specifically the fact that the skills of being high value are not as easy to find. Think of it this way. If you're trying to find the skills of how to be in the top 1% of people value-wise, well, if you were to go to 100 people to go learn those skills, only one of those 100 people statistically would be the type of person who could teach you that. Now, obviously, you can go try and seek out those kind of mentors, but the fact of the matter remains, the majority of the world simply doesn't have those skills because they didn't learn them. And specifically, if your parents were not the most high value people, they might not have those skills. Your teachers, almost by their nature, while they're well-intentioned and want the best for you, people who became teachers are not usually in the 1% of most high value people in the world, just in terms of ambition and having pushed themselves to whatever. There are exceptions, obviously. But again, even if you took a random sample, it would only be 1 in 100, and then there is some self-selection bias in there as well. So the fact of the matter is it's hard to find those mentors who are going to be in that top few percentiles who have the skills that you want to learn. And then beyond that, as I mentioned in the first segment, it's not going to be in the interest of many of those mentors to make you a high value person. And that is if you're a random person, right? So if you're a random person in the world, another random person who's high value doesn't have a lot of vested interest in making you a high value person. Now, the beautiful thing and the wonderful thing is that's not universal. There are situations where that's reversed. And that's a very good thing because that's how a lot of people actually can become high value without having to reinvent the wheel. So for example, if there's a father who's a pretty high value guy and he has a son, it definitely is now in that father's interest to teach his son to be a high value person and pass along those skills. So that's going to be a scenario where instead of it being in his disinterest or kind of neutral, it's going to be strongly in the interest of that father. Or take a scenario where you have a boss in a company and he sees someone who can, really help the company really step up and advance in a certain way. It may then be to his benefit to help that person step up and become a more high value person because that is now in his interest running the company as well. And there's lots of other situations where this may be the case. Maybe you have a good friend and you want your friend to come up and be a high valued person along with you. One, because there's synergy and having two high value people who are friends is better than one and can go further in the world. But also maybe you just want to have another person on your same level who is your friend because it's more fun and brings you more joy and enjoyment in life. So there are a lot of these situations where there actually is synergy, and that's a beautiful thing because that is a big reason why people are helped along this path. And I've been fortunate enough to be in a lot of situations where it has been to my benefit to help other guys become higher value. And I've also been in situations where I've had the benefit and the ability to be mentored by people who are already high value, who have been massively helpful to me in my life. So that is an absolutely beautiful thing. Now, this whole video, it would be very easy to take it as like, oh, being high value is hard, being high value is impossible, the human condition sucks, etc. I actually take it the opposite way. I take it that because it is very hard to be high value, it's a beautiful thing that people are able to become high value. It's a testament to how amazing we are at people that in spite of it not being to the benefit of the world to make us high value, in spite of it being contrary to our emotions and a difficult thing, in spite of it being hard to seek out mentors, there still are a decent amount of people in the world who do achieve this. It actually says a lot about the human condition. It says a lot about what's possible to you. And while it is hard, it is certainly not impossible. almost everybody can do it, right? That sounds crazy, right? Very few people will, but almost everybody could, right? And that's because there are so many obstacles along the way. Which brings me back to that point I made earlier, which is when the path gets tough, you can decide to be depressed by that, or you can decide to be inspired by that. And the winners in life, the people who become high value, are the people who get inspired by that. They're the people who say, this moment where it's tough, that's awesome, because this is the moment where I have the chance to stand out. This is the moment where I have the chance to do the emotionally hard thing that's going to get me there. This is the moment where I have the chance to find a creative solution. This is the place where I have a chance to find that great mentor and develop that great relationship that's going to help me get there. So if you take this video could definitely be taken in one of two ways. If you take this video as a further excuse to not become high value, as a way to get depressed, I'm sorry. That's not how it's intended, and I don't want anybody to take it that way. What I want you to take this video as is as an inspiration to know that the path is hard, but know that it is a path that people have walked before you, and know that the very fact that the path is hard is to your benefit. The fact the path is hard is a good thing, and you should take solace in that and take inspiration from it rather than being depressed by it. All right, so again, to recap, why are the reasons why it's hard to be high value or to become high value? One, because the world is not incentivized to do that. You have to be your own driving force. Two, it is contrary to the easy emotions, right? There are striving emotions, there are emotions of accomplishment that exist, but the easiest, most sort of knee-jerk emotions do tend to be towards avoiding pain and will tend to get in your way sometimes. And thirdly, it is kind of hard to find high-value mentors just because, by the nature that only a few people are in the top few percent, there are only, a small percentage of people you can turn to for this advice. But again, it is doable. Find a way and take each of these obstacles instead of, again, as a reason why not. Take each of these obstacles as an inspiration to, these are the specific things I need to overcome. Now I have a clear path. I have the challenges in front of me instead of having them nebulous and undefined. And having the challenges, having the question posed to you makes finding an answer a lot easier. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe, tune in next time, and I'll see you then.